Imagine waking up one day and sensing something deeply unsettling. The world has stopped thinking. The noise is constant, the pace suffocating, and the flood of information unending. The human mind, once a sharp instrument forged for curiosity, reflection, and truth, has dulled into obedience. We scroll, consume, and conform, mistaking stimulation for awareness. A civilization once driven by inquiry now drifts in comfortable hypnosis, unable to tell illusion from understanding. Pause for a moment and consider that. What happens to a civilization when thought itself disappears? When the ability to question, to doubt, to analyze is replaced by instant reactions, shallow certainty, and collective mimicry. In this video, we'll peel back the layers of how critical thinking is vanishing from modern life, and how a new form of mass ignorance, what philosophers now call collective stupidity, is spreading like a virus. Entire populations surrender their minds to prepackaged narratives, accepting them as truth without ever noticing the exchange. And at the end of this journey, we'll face one final question, one that will decide whether we reclaim our autonomy or hand it over completely to a system designed to keep us pacified, comfortable, and blind. Before we go deeper, take a second to ground yourself. Subscribe, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. What you're about to hear may not comfort you. It may shake what you believe about the world, about others, about yourself. Share this with those who still care about truth, those who dare to think in an age that punishes thought. Let's begin with an uncomfortable reality. Thinking is not easy, and today it's actively discouraged. Our world doesn't reward reflection. It rewards speed, outrage, and conformity. This isn't an accident. From algorithms that show you only what agrees with you, to school systems that prize memorization over exploration, society has been quietly rewiring us to stop questioning and start obeying. Decades ago, philosopher Noam Chomsky warned that this was coming. In his study of media and power, he described how modern institutions rely on what he called the manufacturing of consent. When people are trained to consume without asking, to agree without understanding, they become manageable, predictable, easy to control. Critical thinking, once a cornerstone of being human, has been reframed as rebellion. It slows things down. It disrupts the outrage economy. It asks the forbidden question, what if this isn't true? And in a culture obsessed with certainty and sides, that question alone makes you dangerous. But how did we end up here? The roots go deep. One of the main culprits is information overload. Neuroscientist Daniel Levitin found that the average person now processes 5 times more data each day than just a few decades ago. Every second we're bombarded by alerts, ads, arguments, and noise. The human brain was never designed for this constant assault. When overwhelmed, it defaults to shortcuts, mental autopilot. We rely on biases and group opinions to navigate the flood. Instead of evaluating, we imitate. Instead of understanding, we echo. Rather than reasoning through ideas, we look for signals, social proof, validation, likes. It's a survival reflex that's been hijacked. When a post has 1 million views, we assume it must be important. When everyone repeats something, we stop asking whether it's true. That's not intellect, it's reflex. And it's how collective stupidity spreads. Not through lack of intelligence, but through the quiet surrender of thought itself. Obedience. A second equally alarming symptom of our decline is the death of deep reading. Neuroscientist Marianne Wolf has shown how digital life is literally reshaping the brain. We skim instead of sink in. We click, scroll, switch, and scatter. The ability to hold attention, to wrestle with a complex idea until it reveals its meaning, is vanishing. But critical thinking demands duration. You cannot examine a thought if your focus collapses every few seconds. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you read a full article without glancing at your phone? When did you last let an idea sit inside you before reacting to it? These once ordinary habits are fading into extinction. The late Carl Sagan warned us long ago, we live in a civilization utterly dependent on science and technology, yet few understand either. His fear wasn't ignorance itself. It was the loss of the ability to think about the very systems that sustain us. In a world addicted to opinions and instant validation, the quiet act of thinking for oneself has become the rarest form of rebellion. But this decay isn't just intellectual or technological, it's emotional. Thinking hurts. It forces us to face uncertainty, to dismantle our illusions, to see where our pride has blinded us. True thought destabilizes ego. It breaks comfort, and in a culture obsessed with self-image and certainty, this is intolerable. So instead of thinking, we defend. We cling to tribes, mantras, and algorithms that affirm what we already believe. We label, cancel, repeat, and avoid. We trade conversation for slogans, reflection for performance. The Socratic spirit, the art of honest dialogue that once propelled civilization forward, has been replaced by noise. What we are witnessing is not merely a decline in intellect, but the normalization of mental passivity. The cost is enormous. When thinking dies, questioning dies. When questioning dies, manipulation thrives. And beneath all this noise hides a quiet truth. Someone benefits from our distraction. Someone gains power each time we choose comfort over clarity. To see how this works, we must trace the roots deeper into the very structures designed to shape our minds. Systems that, far from cultivating independence, have been engineered to suppress it. Take education. John Taylor Gatto, the maverick teacher who exposed the machinery of schooling, argued that modern education was never built to create thinkers. Schools, he wrote, don't really teach anything except how to obey. The classroom of the industrial age was designed to produce predictable workers, obedient, punctual, compliant. That blueprint still governs us today. We are not taught how to think, but what to think. From childhood, we're graded not on insight, but on repetition. Creativity becomes defiance. Curiosity becomes distraction. The lesson is clear. Stay in line, remember the rules, don't ask why. And this conditioning doesn't stop when we grow up. It evolves. At work, in media, in social circles, dissent carries a price. To question the group invites exile. The fear of being labeled difficult, arrogant, or controversial silences more people than censorship ever could. And silence, when repeated long enough, becomes a habit of submission. Psychologist Erich Fromm saw this long before social media existed. In Escape from Freedom, he wrote that most people secretly crave dependence. Freedom terrifies them because it demands responsibility. To think for yourself means owning your ignorance, abandoning the comfort of the herd, and walking unprotected into the storm of truth. For many, that price is unbearable. So they choose distraction. They choose certainty. They choose the small, predictable safety of collective ignorance. And in doing so, they hand over their autonomy, piece by piece, to whoever promises comfort in exchange for obedience. Social media has taken this process and turned it into an empire. What once promised connection has become a colossal engine of distraction, outrage, and control. Every platform is built for addiction, to keep you scrolling, reacting, and consuming instead of thinking. You are not a user, you are the product. Algorithms whisper in your ear, feeding you comfort, anger, validation, whatever keeps you engaged. You are trained to respond instantly, to feel before you think. The result is an emotional assembly line, where thought is replaced by reaction, and noise is mistaken for truth. Platforms reward speed, not accuracy, attention, not understanding. The more divided we are, the more profitable we become, and amid the chaos, the quiet voice of reason is drowned beneath the algorithm's roar. Philosopher Marshall McLuhan saw this coming decades ago when he wrote that the medium is the message. The way we consume information shapes the way we think. Today's mediums are designed for velocity, not depth, for outrage, not nuance, for certainty, not curiosity. Even truth has become a popularity contest. In the age of misinformation, what spreads the fastest often replaces what's real. People don't judge ideas by logic or evidence anymore, but by virality. This is the new tyranny, not of kings or governments, but of consensus. The crowd decides what's real, and the individual mind is too exhausted to argue. So, where do we begin to reclaim it? By asking better questions, the kind that puncture illusion. What am I being told to believe? Who benefits if I believe it? What assumptions hide beneath my certainty? When was the last time I sought out someone I disagreed with, not to fight them, but to understand them? These are not easy questions, but they are the gateway to freedom. The antidote to collective stupidity isn't intelligence, it's courage. The courage to be wrong, the courage to learn, the courage to admit that what you've always believed might not be true. Socrates understood this thousands of years ago, when he said, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." It wasn't humility, it was liberation. The moment you admit your ignorance, you open the door to wisdom. And yet in our time, humility is treated like weakness. Certainty has become a religion. Arrogance is paraded as intellect. Everyone speaks, few listen. Everyone argues, few understand. The real thinkers are not the loudest. They're the ones who pause, observe, and reflect. They know that clarity grows from silence, that wisdom is born in the spaces between words. But in a world that worships spectacle and speed, slow thought feels like rebellion. Still, we must protect it, because once you abandon your right to think, you abandon your freedom. You become a puppet, your strings pulled by forces invisible but deliberate. And make no mistake, those forces have names. They are political. They are economic. They are cultural. They profit from your outrage and rely on your passivity. But when you reclaim your mind, the spell breaks. You become unpredictable. You begin to see through illusion, through manipulation, through the performance of power. You stop being a consumer of narratives and become a seeker of truth. And that simple act, a single moment of real thought, has ignited revolutions throughout history. So now ask yourself, will you do the same? To truly grasp why collective stupidity thrives, we must venture into the battlefield where it's born, the human mind itself. Despite our obsession with logic, the truth is uncomfortable. The brain is not ruled by reason but by emotion. We like to imagine ourselves as rational beings guided by evidence, yet most of what we call thinking is merely feeling disguised as logic. In his groundbreaking book Thinking, Fast and Slow, Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman revealed that the human mind operates on two systems. One fast, impulsive, emotional. The other slow, deliberate, reflective. The fast mind acts in milliseconds. It judges, decides, reacts. The slow mind questions, analyzes, verifies, but the slow mind is lazy. It demands energy, time, and patience, all things our world has systematically destroyed. And so we live mostly in the fast lane of thought, reactive, automatic, driven by emotion rather than inquiry. In this mental autopilot, we rely on shortcuts, stereotypes, gut instincts, and tribal cues that make us feel safe, but often lead us astray. So it's here in this blind spot of cognition that manipulation thrives. Politicians, marketers, influencers, media strategists, they all know this. They package complexity into comforting binaries, good or evil, us or them, victim or oppressor. They lace messages with emotional triggers, fear, anger, pride, because emotion bypasses logic. Repeat a lie enough times, and it no longer feels like propaganda. It feels familiar. And familiarity is often mistaken for truth. Once we accept a belief as truth, the mind defends it like territory. Evidence that contradicts it is ignored, ridiculed, or rewritten to fit the story we've already chosen. This reflex is called confirmation bias, and it's the silent architect of every delusion. Think of your own beliefs. How often do you genuinely seek out proof that could dismantle them? How often do you listen to an opposing argument without secretly preparing your counterattack? If you're like most, the answer is rarely. That's not a flaw, it's human nature, but it becomes poison when we mistake it for intelligence. Then there's groupthink, the collective version of this same disease. It's what happens when the desire for harmony, for belonging, outweighs the need for truth. History is drenched in its consequences. Failed wars, financial collapses, moral atrocities, all born from minds too afraid to dissent. People silence their doubts to protect the illusion of unity. They choose consensus over truth, conformity over courage. Social psychologist Irving Janis, who coined the term, discovered something haunting. Even the most brilliant, ethical individuals can make disastrous choices when trapped in groupthink. Intelligence doesn't save you, integrity does. And integrity always costs. But look back through history, and you'll see that every leap of progress was sparked by someone who refused to think like the crowd. Galileo defied the church. Darwin defied dogma. Nietzsche defied morality itself. Martin Luther King defied an entire system. Each paid the price of isolation, mockery, even hatred, but their defiance rewired civilization. Critical thought is rebellion. In a society built on obedience, the thinker is always the heretic. To question is to risk exile, but the reward is freedom, the rare clarity that comes when your beliefs are yours, not inherited, not programmed, not sold to you by someone else. And maybe this is why so many feel lost, anxious, restless, why a generation drowning in information feels starved for meaning. It's not because we lack knowledge, but because we've lost conversation with ourselves. The ancient practice of inner dialogue, the quiet wrestling match with truth, has been replaced by endless noise. We outsource our thoughts to machines, to media, to collective emotion. But no algorithm can tell you what is real for you. No trending topic can replace your inner compass. No movement can substitute the serenity of a mind that has examined itself. So what can we actually do to reclaim our minds? It begins with awareness, the rarest and most radical act in a distracted world. Awareness of how we think. Awareness of what shapes our beliefs. Awareness of when we're truly reasoning and when we're just reacting. One of the most powerful tools is metacognition, the act of observing your own thoughts like a scientist watches an experiment. Ask yourself, what emotion is steering me right now? Who planted this idea in me? Am I engaging with this thought, or am I being pulled along by it? This isn't overthinking, it's self-defense. Another essential discipline is dialectical thinking, the ability to hold two opposing ideas at once without collapsing into panic or certainty. It's not weakness, it's mastery. It's what allows the mind to stretch, to breathe, to grow beyond binaries. When you stop needing to be right, you begin to see what's true. Philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti captured this beautifully when he said, "To understand the immeasurable, the mind must be extraordinarily quiet. That stillness is not passivity, it's focus. And in a world built to hijack your attention, true stillness is an act of rebellion. It's in that silence that the deepest insights take root. But let's not romanticize it. Critical thinking is not a talent you're born with. It's a discipline like building muscle. It demands patience. It demands humility. It demands the courage to sit in uncertainty without rushing to fill the void. It means reading, not just headlines but pages, arguments, contradictions. It means listening, not only to those who echo your worldview, but especially to those who dismantle it. Above all, it demands that we abandon intellectual laziness, the addiction to easy answers. When something sounds too convenient, too polished, too unanimous, that's the moment to pause. Not to rebel automatically, but to examine honestly. In an era where confidence is often confused with competence, the ability to think deeply has become a public service. The health of a society doesn't depend on how loud its citizens are, but on how clearly they can reason. Great revolutions don't start with crowds. They start with clarity. They begin the moment one person dares to think differently in a world that worships conformity. And at the heart of this entire crisis, beneath the noise, the algorithms and the chaos, lies a quieter, more dangerous truth. Most people don't avoid thinking because they can't. They avoid it because they fear what it will reveal. To think critically is to dig into the foundations of your identity. It's to peel away every layer of certainty you've built to feel safe. Your politics, your tribe, your beliefs. Thinking means confronting the possibility that you've been wrong and that your entire sense of self may need to change. And yet, that is where freedom begins. You are not your opinions. You are not your affiliations. You are not the slogans you repeat. You are a being capable of transformation, of learning, of rebirth. And that transformation begins the moment you detach your worth from your beliefs. Because critical thinking, at its core, is not an academic exercise. It's a spiritual act. It's choosing truth over comfort, growth over approval, and awareness over belonging. It's opening your eyes even when the light burns. Once you do, you start to see the world as it is. The systems that manipulate you, the incentives that shape you, the illusions that keep you docile. It's painful at first. It feels like losing innocence. But what you gain is something far greater: reality. And reality, no matter how heavy, is the only ground upon which genuine freedom can stand. Carl Jung once warned, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And he was right. The hardest battlefield is always internal. To look inward, to confront your motives, your fears, your conditioning, is the most demanding form of courage. Critical thinking isn't just about dissecting the world outside you. It's about dismantling the illusions within. It means asking yourself, why do I believe this? Where did this conviction come from? What part of me is afraid to let it die? True thinking is self-interrogation, not self-confirmation. It's the willingness to face the discomfort of realizing that much of what you know was never truly yours. And when you begin that process, something remarkable happens. A new dimension of understanding opens, not just of knowledge, but of wisdom. In a culture obsessed with instant gratification, wisdom is the slow fire that still burns. It doesn't hand you answers. It deepens your questions. Where noise demands reaction, wisdom invites reflection. Where conformity offers comfort, wisdom demands freedom. This is your invitation, not just to think, but to awaken. To stop being a product of circumstance and begin shaping the architecture of your own mind. No school, no institution, no platform will do it for you. The responsibility and the privilege are entirely yours. Once you accept that, transformation begins. You start to see with an intensity you've never known. You begin to feel what it's like to live aligned with truth. Not borrowed truth, not fashionable truth, but your own hard-won truth. You notice manipulation when it tries to seduce you. You discern the difference between information and indoctrination, between connection and performance, between education and programming, and slowly you begin to lead, not with volume, not with vanity, but with depth. You become the still point in a world spinning in hysteria, a calm light in a room of noise, because what the world needs most right now is not more shouting, but more seeing. Not sharper comebacks, but deeper minds. People willing to sit inside paradox to say, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. Minds humble enough to listen, brave enough to doubt, and grounded enough to understand that truth is not something you win, it's something you serve. If you want to change the world, start by changing the architecture of your thought. Not because it's glamorous, not because it's easy, but because it's right. The epidemic of collective stupidity isn't the cause, it's the symptom. the symptom of exhaustion, distraction, and fear. Every act of genuine thought pushes back against that current. Every moment you pause before reacting, every question you ask instead of assuming, every time you choose awareness over convenience, you reclaim a piece of your humanity. And that's the revolution no system can suppress. So as this journey ends, remember, the most subversive act you can commit is to think. While others chant slogans and scroll through illusions, you have the power to remain awake. Don't surrender it. Don't numb it. Don't trade it for acceptance. You are awake now. And once you've opened your eyes, you can never go back to sleep. If this message resonates, share it, not for validation, but for survival. Leave your reflections, your doubts, your discoveries. Because real thought doesn't grow in silence, it thrives in dialogue. And if you're still here, understand this. You are not alone. There is a quiet revolution unfolding, not in the streets but in the mind. Not through noise, but through awareness. It begins every time one person decides to ask the question everyone else avoids. Let that person be you. Stay curious, stay awake, and above all, keep thinking. End.